Okay.
Great, we're live. Good afternoon, well, good evening or good morning to all those joining us from other parts of the world. It's a few minutes before 3 o'clock here in Lagos, Nigeria, and we're excited to welcome you today to today's edition of Climate Wednesday. The topic is agricultural investments for food sustainability and productivity. For those of you joining for the first time, the Climate Wednesday has been on for about 5 years, and it's about driving conversations around climate change, environmental issues. For 5 years, we've been doing this, and it's really been meaningful conversations. Before now, it used to be sets of tweet chats, but we thought we could reach a lot more people, a lot more audience with conversations like this. Thanks to COVID for exposing us to that aspect of life. Today, my guest is Professor Nelson Abila, and it's so exciting to have him join us today in this conversation. Hello, Prof.
Thank you, Shay, for me. By the way, I'm just an ordinary PhD holder, not a professor yet, and an ordinary farmer too. By the way,
Well,
thank you, Shay, for the introduction.
We're speaking into the future. I mean, it was. I could just tell you the secret, and also, put it out there to the world. While we were planning for this, a few people were like, we had a few options, and we're like, so we have A, B, C, and who do we go for? And everyone was like, Nelson Abila, Nelson Abila, Nelson Abila, and that's why we're having this conversation. So tell us a little bit about yourself. Let's do a little bit of introduction.
Okay.
So, could you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, my name is Nelson Abila, like you all know. I like to call myself, like my Twitter handle described me. I'm an ordinary farmer with a PhD in economics. I'm a development economist. I'm passionate about development. I sort of love to sort of explore more the nexus between agriculture and energy, or between food production and energy, because I believe once we can solve the problem of food, the problem of energy, particularly in Nigeria, economic growth will have been solved to the large extent. So I think that in a bit explains me. That's who I am. I'm a farmer. I'm into practice while I still work at the African Development Bank. Thank you.
That's very conservative. Thank you very much. And to to the world who is watching, good to know that Nelson holds a Doctor of Science degree in Economics and Business Administration, and he got that from, where was that again?
That's 2014 from the University of Vasa, somewhere in Finland.
Oh, great. And he went on to also bag a master's degree in agricultural science from, where was that?
University of Agriculture, Abeokuta.
Great. Well, I feel proud a little. Maybe we should take a few seconds to say Funa Baita. Well, I know Funa.
Oh, are you one?
Yes, I did. Just finished from Funa 2014.
Okay, lovely. That's interesting.
Yeah. And before now, Nelson currently works with the African Development Bank, but before now he's worked with the International Institute of Tropical Agriculture, IITA, very popularly known, Windrock International, and also the Nigerian Extractive Industries Transparency Initiative. And I know he's also coordinated some small grant projects for the Ruford Foundation, along the line of community biodiversity. Could you tell us a little bit about that? Before we get into the conversation, which is about food security, can you tell us a little bit about your work on the community biodiversity conservation project?
Yeah, thank you very much. Some of us who are conversant with the Southwest, there is a town called Igboho in Oyo State. And there in Igboho, we have what we call the King's Forest, Igbo in Yoruba. And that King's Forest is where the past ABCs have been buried from historical times. like the popular Rompoto, the female king, was buried in the Igbo Ova. So for a while, no one is allowed to sort of back into the forest or do any development, build house or something. Though gradually the forest is being eroded as the town is catching up with the forest. But the forest is still there, and it's a great site for natural resource. It's a great site for reproduction of the African giant bats. So we felt it would be nice to do a project to help to sort of identify the sort of trees that still exist in the forest, see how the communities sort of can see the benefit of preserving that forest rather than burning it down or destroying, the natural resource, natural environment there. For them to preserve it so that it can serve much more purpose. Preserving biodiversity is also a cultural heritage. I know a few of global leaders who have always visited that site for whatever reason. I don't know. So it serves a whole lot more purpose. It's also an economic asset, for the community. So the project was, sponsored by Ruford, a small grant foundation, and it was meant for us to sort of identify the biodiversity there, identify the trees, and sort of help work with the community to find a way to help them to preserve the forest. So, in a nutshell, that's what the project was all about.
Sounds really interesting. And I could also do a little bit of throwback. I remember working around some conservation projects, and they told us of how some places are named after animals that are now we're losing, like the what's crocodile in Yoruba again? Oni.
Oni. No, it's not Oni. It's okay.
Yeah, but I mean, there are communities named after different animals, and then because these animals are living, just the names is what we have. But I mean, that's another conversation for another day. But it's interesting to see that we have similar interest in the areas of conservation. But today we're here to interview you as a farmer. Food security is a very important topic that the world is spotlighting right now. And that's why the conversation today is focused on agricultural investments for food sustainability and productivity. So let's start by, doing some little bit of intro into this. Do you think that there are untapped potentials, investment potentials that can boost the agribusiness or the agricultural sector?
Yeah, to answer that question, I think the categorical answer is yes. Indeed, there are many untapped investment potentials to boost agribusiness in Nigeria, in Africa, and the world at large. We are barely able to produce enough food to feed ourselves and to also provide raw materials for industries. So yes, there is a whole lot of room for many investors to come in, but the caution, as always, is there is need to understand the terrain before investing, and there is need to do the proper due diligence. Agribusiness has more potential to contribute to national GDP or even the global GDP, and there's room for investment in crop and livestock production, in processing, in value adding, and of course, allied sector like finance, insurance, and logistics, and so on and so on and so forth. So, there is quite a lot of investment streams in these various subsector within agriculture and agribusiness.
Great, great. I mean, thank you for letting me know that. And this is not just a categorical answer of yes, but even breaking it down to different, units, different components that has the potentials for investment. Maybe we can dig into some of that when we get to a few questions that I have lined up. But I want us to just talk about, I mean, when we talk about agriculture as an industry, it's very tied to the drivers of that industries. And as much as we're having, a lot of technology to drive this, all of this is still comes down to human capital and human that controls this technology, or humans that even in the farm doing it in the very local small scale. So what do you make of the importance? I mean, I just want to feel your thoughts about the importance of fiscal capitals in the area of agricultural productivity. I mean, human resources. and now it's tied to agricultural productivity?
Thank you very much, Sheyi, for that question. It's not enough to have land. If you have land and you want to farm, though technology has advanced, uh, farm without the land. Hydroponics is there, and there are so many other options for farming now without actually, farming on the land. But for us to turn, our God-given resources or gift of nature, as is referred to in economics, into productive assets, we need to put in sufficient physical capital investment. The land will not produce the food we need if we don't cultivate it. And you cannot cultivate the land without the tractor, without the planter, to plant the grains, without the fertilizer, without seeds, among other arrays of inputs that you need, which are considered as physical assets to be able to help you to sort of, invest in agriculture or to put land as a productive asset into good use. So we cannot also underestimate the importance of human capital, not just the physical labor, but, also the knowledge, the creativity, the work culture. The medium to large scale farmers understand the essence of human capital. Your investment depends to a large extent, the human capital you have. Do you have sufficient or managers who are sufficiently vast in that particular investment streams you have, getting into? So all these, are critical for, as we push for investment drive in agriculture. If you want to be able to add value to people's money, the physical capital has to be there. There should not be any hindrance to you having access to the physical capital as well as the human capital. Thank you.
So let's try to get a balance. You mentioned, the availability of land first, and that also is tied to land improvement. There's also the aspect of existing natural resources and the development of that, and thirdly, there is the aspect of human capital. If you were to put it in a scale, if we're to address food security, which of these components do you think deserves some huge investments and will transform into results? If we had to put it in an order of priority, would it be the land improvement, would it be development of natural resources, or would it be investment in human capital, the people, the drivers?
Well, it would be difficult to sort of rank them in order of priority because it depends on a whole number of factors. But the key thing is, land improvement, development of natural resources, human and social capital development, and investment in allied value chains all should be part of a holistic agricultural investment towards changing the fortune of agriculture in our country and in the continent. And to attract investors into agriculture, we need to map out and develop zones and regions that can have sufficient infrastructure and facilities and have sort of adjoining locations where investors can access allied services to support the agribusiness investment. So it's difficult to actually prioritize. It depends on what investment you are getting into, the location and the geography. Sometimes you get to a place where maybe there is already an abattoir and you're investing into the meat value chain. So it means if you're investing in the meat value chain, there is already an abattoir there. So you'll not be thinking about putting up a new abattoir. If the old one is not as modern as you want, you just sort of need to do an upgrade and so on and so forth. So for you to invest, it depends on the kind of investment, where the investment is located, and so many other factors that you need to consider before you say you are going to prioritize. Of course, it's important to do a comprehensive analysis, for you to decide what you pay attention to, what requires the bulk of your investment. Though, from my personal experience, infrastructure to secure your investment is very key. It's important.
Great. So I hear you clearly. There's a need for comprehensive analysis to understand the uniqueness of a particular, agricultural sector or location or whatsoever units or components are to be put kept in mind. Thank you very much. Just before we go into this conversation, I want to say welcome to everyone joining us. We're streaming on YouTube, on Facebook, on Twitter, And we're having this conversation with Nelson Abila, who calls himself an ordinary farmer. But of course, he works with the African Development Bank. And we're having this conversation about agricultural investment for food security and productivity. And we think this is a very important conversation to have at this time when the world is beaming a spotlight on food security. And he shared with us some insight as to the fact that the agri business is a sector that has untapped investment potentials in different areas. He's also shared with us the central importance of investing in physical capital, human resources. And the last question I asked him, pretty tricky question, was to sort of prioritize which components of agri investments should take the lead when we look at land improvement, natural resources development, and human and social capital development. So we're going on with this conversation, but feel free to put your questions in the comments, reply as a tweet, put it up on YouTube, Facebook, and we'll sync it with this conversation as we go on with Nelson Abila. So Nelson, thank you so much. Are you there?
Yes, I'm here. Sorry, I had
Yes,
to
great.
mute my mic because some noise seems to be coming from my side.
I see, not a problem. But it's still clear enough and we can go on with the conversation. So,
Okay.
I mean, this sounds like a rhetorical question, but I still would love to, you've been on the field, you have the experience, and you will be able to point me in the right direction here. And the question is, I mean, I'm wondering if investment in infrastructure, machines, vehicles, infrastructures as they are, if it's very important source of growth, why is it? I mean, it seems that there's been huge failure to invest in infrastructures to boost the agricultural sector, and that has greatly, affected food productivity or food sustainability. Why do you think this is so? Why do we have, very poor level of investment in infrastructure to boost the sector?
Thank you, Shay, for that question. This is $1 million question. It's not like the country has not always had investment in agricultural infrastructure. Indeed, the country is littered with such infrastructures, such as dams, abattoirs. We have ranches, a lot of cassava processing facilities, even roads, rural roads, and housing constructed for agricultural settlements, particularly in the pre-independence era and the First Republic. But the problem is, these infrastructures they were well conceived, and for a while it served excellent purpose of boosting agricultural productivity. But many of them have been abandoned, and they lie comatose across the country. Go to the south, go to the north, go to the east. You see these infrastructure that are not being put to good use. So to answer your question directly, perhaps government no longer see agriculture as a formidable source of revenue with petrodollar flowing in. Who wants to spend time on the field or monitoring some farmers who are going to be planting cocoa or rubber or some other crops? So with the new thinking and the appreciation of the contribution of agriculture to GDP, to solve problem of unemployment, to grow the economy and diversify the economy, it's now high time for government and the private sectors, to start reviving some of this old infrastructure. I know in my place in Ondo State, we had what we call a ranch. The ranch now, I think, is grown into bushes, maybe with some Fulani using the place occasionally. So such infrastructures needs to be revived. Investment needs to come in from the private sector, from commercial banks, and possibly development banks like the African Development Bank. So I think it's important now for all players to begin to see the need to invest in critical agricultural infrastructure. That's what's going to be the base, the platform for which we can actually, grow our economy or even help agriculture as a whole contribute much more to economic growth.
I mean, let's just make it a little bit clearer. I hear what you're saying clearly, that there is a need for us to, refocus and, shift our gaze to why this is a very important sector and there should be investments in it. And I agree with you completely. Looking at the fact that the quality of food we're having is reducing every now and then, threats from GMOs and their companies. Looking at the fact that even the quantity of food is also reducing, and this is why the pricing keeps skyrocketing every other day. But how then do you think we can get people that matter to really understand this? Shift gears from, yes, oil could be driving the GDP of the country, but agricultural sector is also very central. I mean, it's basically everyone relates. I can live without fuel in a vehicle or fuel in a generating set for like a month, but I can't do without food for a day. Well, except I'm fasting. But I mean, it's a very important area. And how can we now get people to now know that there is a need for this investment area?
Hello, Shay. Is it from my end or from your end?
Hello, Nelson.
Hello, are you back?
Yes, I had some issues with my network. I can hear you now.
Ah,
So did you
okay.
get the question?
So, yeah, I got the question. There's so much possibilities in agriculture, but there is need to put out there, good data, excellent information that can help people to understand, uh, you know, that there is enough ground, there's a rich ground for investment in agriculture. Agriculture, all through the time that Nigeria's economy was in recession in 2016, agriculture was the main, shoulder, getting the economy to sort of get back. Was contributing large, I think, up to 23% to thereabout. And I think in the current, recession too, agriculture is playing a very huge role. So with people having this information, understanding that agriculture is important, and particularly for the fact that it's going to go a long way in helping us to have an inclusive economic growth, an economy that allows a whole lot more people to participate. How many people can participate in the petroleum sector if we're not even doing refining, if we're not adding value to our petroleum? But if we build agriculture, a whole lot more number of people will be able to play a part. People that are providing services, finance, insurance, logistics, people that are providing implements, that are providing servicing equipment, and so on and so forth. So a whole lot of people will play a part in an economy that is driven by agriculture. And this information is what we need to put out there. Our banks, they need to have a kind of new reorientation. Gone are the days when they sort of believe in pumping money into maybe other sectors and thinking, oh, agric is too risky, let's not put our money there. If you have the right expertise, you can invest in agriculture and you still have your money back. You have your money profit. So that information needs to be there. There is need for experts to continue to do critical analysis. We need to keep engaging the sector. Make sure we have the right data. Punch the data, do critical analysis of the data we have, and keep coming out with results to showcase to people that this is what we have. This is what Agric can offer. If you look at how much we're spending of our foreign reserve to bring in, things that we can produce in the country, milk, a whole lot of products, dairy products, meat products, fish, and so on and so forth. These are things we can produce in the country, and thereby saving our foreign exchange. We don't need to spend our, very scarce dollar a number of things. These are things we should be producing here at home. Even beans, ordinary beans, we should produce enough beans to feed ourselves. Why do we have to import beans from somewhere else? So these are the information we need to have, we need to know, and we need to know those who have a little money reserved somewhere, who have some savings. like I think the digital platforms, crowdfunding, they're changing it gradually because they are getting the middle class sort of show interest in investing in agriculture. But we still have a long way to go to sort of make sure that people's investment are well protected. And if you put money in, you're not going to lose your money. Hello, Shay.
Oh, yes. I don't know if it's my network now or yours, but I just know
Ah,
there's a little bit of lag between
ah, okay.
when you speak and when I hear you.
Okay.
Do you now?
Yes, I can hear you loud and clear.
Yes, but I totally agree with you. There is a need for data to, convince people. There is a need for, accountability for people to know where their funds go when they are being invested. I totally agree that with this we can begin to, refocus and get people's attention to know how profitable the agri business is as a sector of its own. Now, the next conversation we'll be having, I mean, the second part of this conversation is focused on, there are different stages in agriculture. There's the pre-planting, there's the planting itself, there's the post-planting, and you may know that over 9 billion US dollars worth of agricultural product is lost in post-planting stage across the continent every year, and that means that's just one sector. But what I want to know from you is, where do you think the bulk of these funds should go? If for instance I as a investor choose to shift my gaze, like you just convinced me, into agri business, and I say, hey, I got, maybe $2 billion and I want to invest it in agri business. Where do you think my priority should be? Should it go into, pre-planting, the land, the seed? Should it be in the planting stage itself, protecting and seeing that we get maximum yield? Or should it be at the post-planting stage, when after, harvesting your product, you can say, hey, we want to protect, we want to preserve it, we want to export value chains? Which of these areas do you think the bulk of agricultural investment should go?
Thank you for that question. You know, the agricultural investment landscape, it's very huge, and it varies, depending on whether you're investing into crop or you're investing into livestock, you know, or you're even investing into fisheries and so on and so forth. So I think that decision it will be taken at an individual investor's level, and it depends on the type of investment, the location, and of course, availability of facility. What is going to sort of be a leverage for your investment? You know, if if you want to play a part in some part of the value chain, what is already existing there for you to sort of uh, you know start on and continue your investment? What can drive your investment? Is maybe the post-harvest processing better, or are there too many people that are already producing? And you feel, okay, let me just focus on adding value. So, the key thing would be depends on maybe the individual investor, and of course, where you're going to invest your money. So, what's important is to do a comprehensive analysis of the sector and the particular, part of the value chain you want to invest. Going by the glut we've always experienced as far as some crops and food products are concerned, one would suggest investment in post-harvest processing for crops such as tomato. At some point, everybody's producing tomato. There's so much tomato in the market, and prices go for very miserable that it's even difficult for a farmer to break even. People keep producing. So, but there's need for someone to come in to, begin to add value. We have that for actually all the crops we produce, cassava, maize, soybeans, if not for the border closure that has been put in place in Nigeria. Some of these commodities usually have their 3 year cyclical, cycle of, glut and scarcity and all that. So an investor coming in needs to sort of do a comprehensive analysis of the value chain for any of the crops or any of the enterprise they want to invest in, and see where there is enough opportunity for them to come in. where can they better add value, and where can they better derive value. So I think those are the considerations that any investor should have. And of course, too, there is need to sort of go into partnership. If you are going to invest into producing, you need to partner with someone who may be adding value or who may be processing. Because sometimes you may actually end up creating a factory or establishing a factory, and not have access to supply for you to be able to run your factory. Like we have seen with the rice mills across Nigeria. A lot of rice mills were established in the last 5 years, but they don't have paddy rice to process. So there's need to do kind of a comprehensive analysis of value chain. I can't say this enough, and decide on where you think you can better add value. And if there's need for you to sort of partner with other investors, if you are investing in the downstream, find someone who is going to invest in the upstream so that you partner together and you can have a seamless business. Thank you.
I must thank you very much. I mean, it was very annoying that the network was a little bit uh, crappy at some point, and I couldn't hear how or what you said. But I think you made some very interesting points by emphasizing the need to, have a comprehensive analysis and evaluation of different value chains, and also partnering with people across different sectors and like taking it in bits of the project. So very, very important point you raised there. Just a few more questions, and we'll call it a wrap on this edition of Climate Day. Again, I want to say thank you so much for all the responses, very spot on responses, I should say, to the questions we've been asking. To those who's just joining, my guest is Nelson Abila, and he holds a degree of he's a doctor of science, also a degree in economics and business administration from the University of Vassar, and he also has a master's in Agric economics from the Federal University of Agriculture, Abeokuta. He's also, he's had some professional qualifications from different parts of the world, including Belgium, as I said, and most recently he did coordinate the Ruford Small Grants Foundation, for a project somewhere in, is it Ekiti State? No, in Oyo State.
In Oyo State.
Community biodiversity conservation project. Nelson works with the AFDB, the African Development Bank, but before now he's also worked with the International Institute for Tropical Agriculture, IITA, as well as Winrock International and the Nigerian Extractive Industry Transparency Initiative. Thank you so much again, Nelson. It's been, very interesting learning from your wealth of knowledge. So let's go on to ask these few questions, and we'll see comments that we have from, those who are joining us online. And then we can take a few of those questions before we call it a wrap. So next, I want to know, policymakers, you've said a whole lot we've talked about investment and the business people, but you understand, like I do, that as a businessman, before putting in your funds in any business, you want to see what policies surround it. Is it favorable? Are there policies I can navigate with? Because policies are really, very important. No matter how much money you have, if the policies does not make a very conducive atmosphere for you to invest, then it just doesn't make sense to go on and put, all your money into such sector. So what roles do you think policymakers play in influencing agricultural investments that can boost food security?
Thank you very much, Shay. The answer to that question is straightforward. They're just to create the enabling environment. It's as simple as that. Our policies should be consistent enough to allow for medium to long-term investment planning and execution. They shouldn't dabble into too many things that they don't understand. Just create the enabling environment and allow private sector to drive the sector. So,
yeah, as simple as it is, a challenge that I'm also thinking about is the policymakers are not always the expert. So, I could be in the House of Rep or Senate or, any other legislative arm of government, but not really understand the basics of agricultural sector, to not really understand what policies will really, boost the agricultural sector. So, what would be your recommendation for that? in that case?
You know, being a leader doesn't mean you need to understand or you need to know everything. You know, the sort of leeway leaders in Nigeria have, and I think across the world, if you become a House of Rep member, you are allowed to have a team of supporters, your people who work with you. You know, if you are sharing a committee on agriculture, for example, it's left for you to decide, okay, maybe you're a chartered accountant. If you have been given this role, I'm the chairman of the committee on agriculture. You need to have an agric expert with you in your office. We do all the background check, background information. Your own is to make sure whatever it is you're putting together, fitting into the frame of what is required at the National Assembly. Whether you are developing a bill, or you are responding to a resolution that is being made, or you are investigating or probing something in the sector overseeing. So they need to kind of employ more competent people, particularly young people who understand the sector, who have the knowledge, who have the expertise, and have this sort of future outlook as to what it's coming. Because um, everything is changing. Technology is changing everything, be it agriculture, be it mining, be it health, be it education. So it's important for our policymakers. Can be old people, they may not be up to date with technology, but they need to work with people who are competent, have a kind of a panel, have a think tank. The National Assembly usually have, I think, a research arm or so, and that's what that research arm ought to be doing. The institute that is attached with the National Assembly, they are supposed to be doing a whole lot more research and helping to inform the policies that are being debated, at the floor of the National Assembly.
Yes, I totally agree with you, and these are very sound, comments. I really do hope that policymakers can pick this, can listen and make some useful decisions with this very strong recommendation that you've put forward. We have a few questions coming in. I will see how much of it I can take. The first question is one that is very dear to my heart. Being a young person myself, you sort of touched on it, but it's very good for us to it's straight and very direct. And the question is this: how do we engage youth by identifying investments for them? How do we engage youth by identifying investments for them?
Well, thank you for that question. Whoever asked the question is an excellent one. I think it's high time the youths stop waiting for someone to engage them.
Hmm.
We've gone past that time. No. The youth should no longer wait. I think we are already seeing that in agricultural sector, the CEOs of Farm Crowd, the Farm Center, and all these other crowdfunding platforms, they are all young men, young women, who decide that okay, there are a lot of opportunities in this sector. I'm going to take the bull by the horn and see what's going to happen. Some of them are faring well. They started with agriculture. They're branching into housing. They're branching into some other things, transportation, and so on and so forth. So I think young men should no longer wait for the old ones to say, okay, this is what we are able to give you. No, there is no point waiting. If you feel okay, the cassava production and processing, the sector you are keen on, start something. Like this woman who owns Forestry International. She went right into the middle of nowhere somewhere in Oyo State. And with the knowledge she has from running a factory for someone, just decided to sort of start planting cassavas. Before you know it, he's a leader in cassava starch production in the country, if not in the whole of Africa. So there's no point waiting. If you have an idea, a very good idea, get all the information you need, start from the little way you can start, and see how people can come in. If you sort of start anything, you begin to think of how others can sort of support you, get investors to come in, or create a platform. So long as you are honest, the investment is legitimate, eventually you convince people to come in. So the youth should no longer wait. We should lead.
The youth should no longer wait. We should
No,
lead.
we should be leading.
The next question I have here is very controversial, and I hope you can respond to it. I mean, I'm very curious to see how you respond to this. And this is about
Okay.
GMOs, and it's a question saying it's a question saying. I mean, it's making a case for us to accept GMOs as a way to respond to our food insecurity that bedevils us as a country. How do you respond to this?
Uh, that's an excellent question. But the fact remains that GMO is not a silver bullet for food insecurity. It's not a silver bullet. For you to sort of go into a production setting where GMO seeds will thrive, you have the right facilities already on ground. So it's not just a question of GMO. Last year across West Africa, we witnessed so much crop failure as a result of climate change, climate variability. Will GMO solve that? No. Even if you like, produce the most drought tolerant seed. Once the rain has stopped and you don't have facilities for irrigation, there is no
I'm afraid I think the network has gone bad again. Let's see. So while we wait for the network to pick up, I don't know if it's from my end or Nelson Abila's end, but we've been having this conversation about agricultural investment for food sustainability and productivity. And my guest has been Nelson Abila. He holds a Doctor of Science degree in Economics and Business Administration from the University of Vasa in Finland, and he has a master's degree in a bachelor's degree in agricultural technology and a master's degree in agricultural economics and extension. And we've been having a very interesting conversation around food security, food sustainability, food productivity, but most of all around investments. What sort of agricultural investments can improve the sector? I think his network has picked up, and glad to have you back, Nelson Abila.
Thank you very much. Sorry for that snap in the network.
It happened.
So
You're responding to the you're saying that GMO.
So, like I was saying, it's not a question of GMO seeds. No, it can be a matter of choice. If you feel okay, you can produce more efficiently by planting GMO seeds. If the policy of the country allows you, fine. So long as you are going to label your product and whoever is going to buy them in the market can be sure, okay, I don't want GMO, I want something else, I want organic product. That's perfect. So, but I think there's a whole lot more we need to be concerned about. The current production system that is organic by default, can we take it more efficiently? Can we do it more efficiently? If you need sufficient input to be able to plan your production, grow your animals, grow your crops, those things are GMO is not, for me, is not an issue. We are not even there yet.
Okay. I mean, I thought I was right when I said it's a very controversial question, but thank you so much for that response. I guess it could spark a little bit of debate, maybe on Twitter, on Facebook, or on every other platform where climate awareness is streaming right now. But I want to say thank you again, Nelson Abila. It's been 45 minutes of very interesting conversation around food security, agricultural investment, and productivity. Ngozi Edum, she's using a profile picture of Ngozi Iriala, but her name is Ngozi Edum. And she has a question here. She says, agriculture has been cited as a major contributor to deforestation. Deforestation heightens climate change impacts. How do we ensure agriculture and forestry works in enhancing food security and also growth investments? How do we ensure that agriculture and forestry works in enhancing food security and boosting investment?
Thank you, Ngozi, for that question. Indeed, I think over the years, the fact that our farmers believe they need to sort of get what they call virgin land, clear new forest that has sufficient organic matter for them to be able to grow their annual crops. They keep burning down the forest, clearing more forest, and a whole lot of us who are also investing in agriculture are doing that also. We're clearing more land, deploying bulldozers to clear more land to be able to farm. But uh, there is what is called agroforestry. You should be able to sort of plant new, trees, or grow your own forestry, or for agriculture to stay side by side, forestry. There shouldn't be any conflict. And of course, we have foreign forest reserve across the country. Some of these that will help us to sort of meet the climate change impact. So, like I was saying, there's equal opportunity to invest in forestry as we are investing in agriculture, and we should do a whole lot more to mitigate the impact of climate change by investing into forestry as well. Because without the forest, there will be no rain, and we need the rain for us to be able to do our agriculture.
Great, great. I totally agree with you. They are not, exclusive. There is a way
No, they are.
forestry and agriculture can sync and boost food productivity. I think that's the much we can take. It's been a very rich conversation. Thank you so much, Nelson Abila. You've made a lot of recommendations during the course of this conversation. But what would you give as, I mean, if you had to make five solid recommendations, if you had to close out with five solid recommendations around how agricultural investment can, boost food sustainability, what would those five recommendations be?
It's like I missed the question. Can you come back again?
Yes, I'm very happy to repeat it. I
Hello,
think the network
Shay.
is again. Do you hear me now, Nelson?
Oh, okay, okay.
Great. I mean,
Yes,
the
I can
question
hear
is
you
very
clearly.
simple. I said during the course of this, 15 minutes conversation, you've made very strong recommendations about how food security can be addressed, how agricultural investments can be looked into. But I mean, if someone forgets everything we've said so far, if you had to make just five solid recommendations regarding how agricultural investment can boost food security, what will those recommendations be?
Thank you very much, Shay, for this question. I think the first thing is there is need to
Oh, goodness.
do proper study,
No.
do your
Nelson, I'm sorry, it's dragging and I cannot make sense of everything you're saying right now. Uh, I'll just check to see what's happening. If you can hear me, maybe it will be good for you to leave and then come in again, and let's see if we have a better quality. So this is the Climate Wednesday, and we're just wrapping up. We've been having very insightful conversation with Nelson Abila about agricultural investment, which area to invest in, which sector to invest in, questions about why there's been failure in investment, infrastructure should be prioritized. We've also looked at some of the untapped investment potentials in the agri business, and he's made very strong recommendations.
Hello, Shay. It's like
Hey, Nelson, good to have you back. Welcome. Do you hear me now? I know how, uninteresting network would make these conversations go, but I guess we can still try again. Nelson, can you hear me? So Nelson is just going to round off, once his network improves, he's just going to round off this conversation by giving us some very solid recommendations for governments, investors, and other stakeholders that can, address the area of agric investments, which is what we've been looking at within the hour. Is out of the room again, just in a few seconds, and let's hope we'll have him back. So if this is the first time you're hearing about Climate Wednesday, it's a conversation about everything that has to do with the climate, sometimes agriculture like we are today, at other times roles of young people. Uh, but it's pretty much conversations around climate, environment, young people. And we're very happy to have you follow all that we do, even on all social media platforms. Uh, the International Climate Change Development Initiative, ICCDI Africa, you would find it on virtually all the platforms. On Twitter, the handle is @ClimateWed. So feel free to follow and engage with the content we put out from time to time, and opportunities too when there are opportunities within our network. Um, and my guest has been Nelson Abila. Together, we've been talking about food security, agric investment in particular. And we're just rounding off this conversation once this network improves. Well, we'll see if Nelson is still able to join us. But I want to say again, thank you to everyone who's joined the Climate Wednesday, particularly this series, which has been around food security. We've had four interesting guests. I know last week we had Aziz Salau. The week before we had Tabi Joda. And at some point we also had, I cannot recall. We've had really, very high-level resource persons share their thoughts with us around food security. And this is the last of this session talking about food security. Next month we'll begin a new session where we'll be looking at something different. So you want to keep your fingers crossed. And like I said, follow the Climate Wednesday on every platform so that you can know as soon as we put out this information. But between then and now, I think we'd have to call it a wrap. It's so sad that Nelson is unable to, join us and give us his 5 solid recommendations. We'll write him and see if he can come back with us with a note, and then we'll share on our social media platforms. So please follow those platforms so that you can learn what his 5 solid recommendations is or are after this 1 hour long conversation. Thank you indeed to Olumide. Thank you to all the team, colleagues at the International Climate Change Development Initiative. And it's been a pleasure, driving this conversation today. My name is Sheifumi Adebote, and have yourself a wonderful time.